Ready? Okay, break. It's time for the High School Huddle. Your host, Jordan Hirsh, is getting set to break down all the action on the local gridirons in Bucks and Mercer Counties. Stats, conversation, inside analysis. It's all here on the High School Huddle. Proudly brought to you by the Capital Health System and Anthony Petsis and Associates right now on WBCB 1490 AM and 107.3 FM.
Welcome into another installment of the High School Huddle. I am your host, Jordan Hirsh, back with you on another beautiful Thursday here in Lower Bucks County. Once again, we've got a loaded show on tap for all of you here today. We're going to be talking about the Neshaminy Skins playing in the SOL Game of the Week in their Suburban 1 League National Division opener, taking on those vaunted North Penn Knights, a team that has really just run through the SOL over the last handful of years, a team that has had the Skins number. Can Neshaminy get revenge on North Penn? They haven't been able to beat them a whole lot over the last decade, and now head coach Nick Fields' squad, they're coming off their first loss of the season, 38-29, looking to bounce back from that L they took against Cheltenham last week. Also going to be diving into the Pennsbury Falcons. It's been a real struggle for Pennsbury to start the year, now 0-3. They were without their star running back Jordan Brenzinger last week, and it really cost them. Didn't put up much of anything in the way of offensive stats, ended up falling to Council Rock South, one of the surprising teams this year in the SOL, lost 20-6 in that game. Pennsbury, they went down 20-0 at the half, and then just couldn't put together a comeback effort in that one. Also going to be previewing what I believe is the game of the week that we're going to have on air on WBCB Sports over on YouTube tomorrow night at 6 o'clock in Mercer County. Hopewell Valley, Notre Dame. You guys all know this matchup. Over the last handful of seasons, they've provided some real thrillers, perhaps none more thrilling than when they met a couple of seasons ago, a 35-34 win for Notre Dame. But this is a new-look Irish squad. They're 0-2. They haven't started. Their defense really hasn't performed well to start the year, coming off a 37-6 loss against Timber Creek last week. We're going to be talking with the voice of Notre Dame Irish athletics once again on the show this week, Mike Warren. He'll join me shortly after 4:30 here on WBCB. And he's not the only interview we've got for you today, folks. We've got two once again this week in our final segment after I talk with Mike Warren, preview that Notre Dame Hopewell Valley game that's going to be going on in just about 26 hours from now. That game kicks off over at Notre Dame High School. Going to be talking to Steinert Spartan head coach Thaddeus Richards. Steinert, they're coming off their first win of the year, beat Cherry Hill West last week 17-13, but now facing some early season adversity. Their star wide receiver, their leading returning receiver from last year, and then also one of their better defenders, perhaps their CB1, Makai Blackstone, just a junior, out now for the next 5 weeks with a dislocated kneecap. Going to ask Thaddeus Richards a little bit about how that injury is going to impact things moving forward for the Spartans. But first things first, like we always do on this show, we got to start here in Bucks County, and we're going to start with the Neshaminy Skins. Like I mentioned, coming off their first loss of the year, fell 38-29 against the Cheltenham Panthers. It was Cheltenham's first victory of the season, this coming in Neshaminy's home opener last week. And the Skins, right, they cruised, and I mean cruised, through their first two games, outscoring Emmaus and Council Rock South 71-0 in those first two meetings. The defense looked fantastic, and then all of a sudden, it kind of went the other way last week. So the Skins, they now face their first test of adversity after that was honestly one of the more shocking defeats, I think, across Suburban 1 League last week. I don't think many people had Cheltenham going into Neshaminy in that home opener, Nick Fields' first game on Heartbreak Ridge, and going in there and hanging 38 points. It could have easily been 40. They had 3 missed extra points, so they could have very easily gone in there and hung 40 on the Skins in their home opener. But Coach Fields, he talked about it after the Council Rock South game and really after the Emmaus game as well. He wanted his team to face a little bit of adversity, especially early on in the season. And Neshaminy certainly now in those waters going into this game against North Penn. But just quickly going back to that Cheltenham game again, Neshaminy, they were really forced to play catch-up the entire second half. It was a pretty dismal first 24 minutes. They fell behind 19-6 at the break. The second half didn't start well at all. Began with a pick six thrown by Michael Eckert to James Smith, who, how about this? James Smith, got to give him credit, right? He scored a touchdown on all three sides of the ball. He had a pick six. He had a rushing TD, which put the game away in the final minutes. And then also in the second half, he had a kickoff return for a touchdown from about 90 yards. So you give the Panthers a lot of credit. They went in there, showed no fear, and executed their game plan. But the Skins, they made this a game a couple of times in the fourth quarter, cut the deficit to 26-21 and also 32-29. But fourth quarter TDs, one by wide receiver for the Panthers, Carson Gideons, in which he just absolutely mossed his defender, still trying to figure out how he came down with that ball. By the way, it was also on a 4th and 9 play. From about 30, I think it was from the 33-yard line. And then that rushing touchdown by Smith on a 3rd down, in which the Skins desperately needed a stop if they wanted any chance. He ends up taking it into the end zone, and that was pretty much all she wrote. Some stats from that game. Michael Eckert, not a terrible game, but probably his worst of the year if you look at these numbers. He threw the ball 29 times, which, first of all, that's not what Neshaminy wants to do. If their quarterback's throwing the ball almost 30 times per game, they're not going to win a whole lot because they want to get their offense going by way of their rushing attack. And if they're throwing as much as they did last week, it means they're playing catch-up, which is exactly what the case was against Cheltenham. But Eckert, 17 for 29, 169 yards, 2 touchdowns, that 1 interception. Also ran for 13 times, 74 yards. I thought his scrambling ability was put on display. They certainly designed some quarterback runs in that RPO game for him as well. I thought Eckert's legs, he did a very good job in that facet of the game. Scored a touchdown on the ground. 9.9 yards per completion, so 169 yards, 17 completions. And you look at that and it's like, okay, he's almost getting a first down every time he completes a pass. But if you go back to week 1, he had 25 yards per completion, and in week 2 it was 21. And I think a lot of that just goes to show how Neshaminy, they don't want to throw the ball a whole lot. They want to be able to take the top off of a defense when they need to, but if they're throwing the ball 29 times a game, that's not a recipe for success for the Skins. Carter Klee, only 13 carries, put up 84 yards and a touchdown. Brock Williams, 8 receptions for 77 yards. He got unlocked a bit more in the second half. Bobby Lagler wasn't quite the big play threat that we were used to. 3 receptions, 30 yards. Mike Sassano had 2 catches. Both of them went for touchdowns. The defense, I mean, I mentioned it. You put up 38. They got 38 points allowed on them, but they still had 7 total sacks. And Corey Kenoy-Webb, really want to highlight him and his efforts this season. 3 sacks last week. 5 tackles for loss, 7 total tackles. This is the guy who was expected to be more of a rotational piece, but with the injury to defensive end Lucas Stewart, he's really been thrust into more of a starting role, and Corey Kenoy-Webb really stepping up in that department. Owen Schwartz also a couple of sacks, 3 tackles for loss, 7 total tackles as well for him. By the way, those 38 points that were allowed, the most since a 42-0 loss at CB South in the 2023 season back on October 13th that year. And it was the most points the Skins allowed at home since that same season, September 8th, 42-17 in a loss against Downingtown West. Cheltenham, they had a very simple game plan following their Week 2 loss against Central Bucks East, where their offensive line really got exposed in that game. The Panthers, they relied on quick passes, screens, slants, short crosses to get the ball out quicker and to get it to their playmakers in open space, and that's exactly what they did because the Skins really had no answer for that. And it seemed that whenever Cheltenham would get the ball to one of those wide receivers on a pass that wouldn't go more than 5 to 10 yards down the field, there would really be no defender for another 10 to 15 yards, and that led to a lot of big chunk plays, especially on 3rd and longs. It was really surprising to see Neshaminy struggle the way they did on 3rd down. And my broadcast partner and I, we were on the call, Nick Gallagher. We talked about it in the pregame open, just how crucial the secondary was going to be, and they did not answer the bell last week in that 38-29 loss. But, like I mentioned, gave the Panthers a lot of credit for sticking to that game plan, especially because it would not have really been able to have been executed if they did not have the talent in the receiving game that they certainly do possess. Isaiah Upchurch, Carson Gideons had a really nice game. Kendall Jackson was more of a facilitator as a quarterback, got a lot of his passing yards because of run after catch ability. by those two guys, and they certainly put up some big offensive numbers. And it was interesting, I noticed this after the game as well. Nick Felis, he kept some of his team in the post-game huddle for about 10 to 15 minutes after you typically would have saw them break. For reference, Cheltenham, they'd completely left the field. Myself, Nick Gallagher, Brianne O'Neill, she was producing the stream. We had all packed up, and we were walking back to the parking lot, and they were still talking in that huddle. So certainly you wonder what you wonder what they were talking about. You got to believe it was a big, heavy emphasis on the defense and how they have to be able to put together a better game plan if they want to pull off what would have to be an upset against North Penn this week. But taking a look at that game now, Neshaminy, North Penn, Skins looking to bounce back for the first time all year, and this is going to be probably the toughest test they face all season in the North Penn Knights here in their SOL National Division opener. Last season, North Penn, they just dominated Neshaminy en route to a 37-7 win. That was the Skins' worst loss of the year. Michael Eckert, 10 for 14, 77 yards, an interception. Did have 2 carries for 76 yards and a TD in that game. Carter Klee, worth noting, did not play in that one. He was out with an injury. Caden Weaver, his backup, just 8 carries for 42 yards. Mike Sosano had a catch in that one. They did run the ball very well, though, even without Klee in that game. Rushed 30 times for 203 yards, 6.8 yards per carry. That was, of course, aided by those 2 carries for 76 yards by quarterback Michael Eckert. Owen Schwartz had a nice game on defense, 2 tackles for loss, 6 total tackles, and a forced fumble. But the defense was only able to get to the quarterback 1 time in that game. If the Skins are going to pull off the upset this week, they're going to have to wreak some more havoc in the backfield, that's for sure. But a scouting report on those North Penn Knights, off to a 3-0 start once again. Wins over Downingtown East, Council Rock South, and Quakertown. They're currently ranked the number 1 team in the Suburban 1 League by S1Insider.com. For comparison, Neshaminy was ranked 9th in that ranking going into this week. North Penn, they're one of only 4 remaining 3-0 teams, and in fact, 2 of the others are actually in the National Division, Central Bucks East and Pennridge. We're going to talk about the Rams coming up here in just a little bit because they're taking on Pennsbury this week. They're led by senior quarterback Matt Buxer, and they've got a very deep rushing attack as well, a very talented offensive line. The biggest name in the running game for the Knights is senior Matt Ponel. Last week, 12 carries, 78 yards, a touchdown in a 42-7 win against Quakertown. Also had a receiving touchdown. He's committed to Navy, and if you're committed to play football at Navy, then you know 2 things about that player, and that's 1, that he's tough, and 2, that he is a very, very talented runner with the offense that the armed forces schools like to deploy. Junior Riley Gray is another one Neshaminy has to watch out for. He had a touchdown. He plays both sides of the ball and had a great game on defense last week. And then another senior, Cam Maynor, 4 carries, 64 yards. He's a guy who's used in the receiving game a lot as well. 2 catches for 34 yards last week. They had the defense man for North Penn as well, perhaps just as good as the offense, if not better, allowed just 8 first downs. That was it. 8 first downs last week against Quakertown. And North Penn, they've dominated this matchup. In the Max Preps era, which goes back to 2004, the Knights are 16-6 against Neshaminy. They've won 4 straight games and 10 of their last 11. So Nick Felis, he wanted his team to experience adversity, and there's certainly nothing like getting punched in the mouth before your biggest game of the season. I'm going to be very interested to see how the secondary bounces back. North Penn, they can beat you in a lot of different ways, and it is going to be on this talented defensive line to somehow quiet the Knights' rushing attack. The secondary, especially in a game that may be a little bit closer than North Penn's 42-7 victory last week, North Penn probably going to have to pass more as a result. Secondary needs to have a near 180-degree performance going back to last week. And offensively, yes, last week, the 29 points, it was nice, but they have to get off to a quicker start. If you let North Penn get out to a 2-score first-half lead, good luck to you, because their running game, it can bury you, and that's what happened to Quakertown last week. So this may be a game where the Skins have to score 30 to 35 points to win, and you better be able to spread that out among all 4 quarters. So Neshaminy looking to bounce back, looking to pick up a big win against North Penn. You can catch that game tomorrow, 7 o'clock on the WBCB Sports Network. Myself, Nick Gallagher, we've got the call for you over there. Another game you can find 7 o'clock tomorrow is Pennsbury against Pennridge. Pennsbury coming off of a 20-6 loss against Council Rock South on the road last week. And this game kind of just felt doomed from the get-go for PHS. Just minutes before kickoff, it was announced that Jordan Brenzinger, their star running back, was out injured. The Falcons, they fell behind 20-0 at the half. Only scored on a garbage time rushing touchdown by quarterback David Kane, who saw his most action of the season last week. And it was just another case for the Falcons of not being able to put together a full 48-minute performance, I think. Defense played a much better second half. In fact, they pitched a shutout after halftime. But at the end of the day, if your offense is only putting up 9 points per game, which is what the Falcons are averaging this year, you're not going to be able to win a whole lot. Some stats from that game: David Kane, 3 for 7, just 13 yards, 2 rushes, 6 yards on that TD. Caden Brown on the ground, 9 carries, 25 yards, he fumbled. And backup running back Noah McArdle, he was maybe the biggest breakout guy for Pennsbury, showing what he can do in the absence of Jordan Brenzinger, 16 carries for 52 yards. But now the Falcons, they head back home. They're facing the 3-0 Pennridge Rams, and this really begins the toughest portion of their schedule. They've got Pennridge, followed by the 3 Central Bucks teams, and then North Penn, who's had Pennsbury's number for a long time. I talked about it on my first show. It was going to be crucial for Pennsbury to get off to that fast start. They were not able to do that, and now looking to dig themselves out of this 0-3 hole against some of the top teams in the Suburban 1 League. But Pennsbury and Pennridge, they've played some very tight games, in fact, in recent history. Each of the last 3 have been decided by 5 points or fewer. Pennridge, they got the win last year up in Percy, 18-13. Some stats from that game: then junior quarterback Noah Keating, 9 for 14, 152 yards, 2 touchdowns and an interception. Also carried the ball 13 times to the tune of 52 yards. Pennridge, they rushed 36 times for just 150 yards. That was the thing that Pennsbury can hang their hat on from that meeting last season. Gave up just 4.2 yards per carry. But a scouting report of the Rams, they're coming off of a 4-7 campaign last season, and they're off to their first 3-0 start since the 2020 year, when they finished 7-1. They had an undefeated regular season. Of course, it was shortened due to COVID. But over the last 3 years, the Rams, they have not really been the class of the SOL. They have a combined record of just 9-24, and now being viewed as potentially the most improved squad in the league. They have wins this season at Liberty and Ben Salem. That Ben Salem win coming week 2, one of the more impressive ones, one of the ones that I think showed a lot of people at Pennridge. They're here to make some noise in 2025. Beat up on Truman last week. Their offense, though, averaging 36 points per game through the first 3 weeks. For reference, they averaged just 16.2 points per game last year. Pennridge, they started the season last year, though, 4-2. Then they went on to lose their last 5, so they're hungry this week to prove that they are no fluke this time around. And this is going to be an incredibly tough game for the Falcons, I believe. I don't think there's any way of sugarcoating it. It remains to be seen if Brenzinger is going to be available. Either way, the ground game must play the game of the year for them if the Falcons are going to have any chance, because this really feels like a game where dominating time of possession would be the only way Pennsbury can win. And look, while a W, it may not be in the cards for the Falcons tomorrow night, I would like to see them put together a full 48-minute effort. They've shown flashes this season. They've had good spurts in each of their first 3 games, and the 0-3 start, I don't think it's been all bad. It's been mostly bad. Like I said, I'm not going to sugarcoat it, but there are certainly some things that Pennsbury can take away from those first 3 games that they can hang their hat on a little bit. And if they put together a full 48 minutes, I think their confidence of being able to pull off an upset during this tough stretch of games, if not this week, maybe against one of the Central Bucks teams or even North Penn, I think that confidence level, it would rise. So Pennsbury taking on Pennridge, 7 o'clock tomorrow. Chris Ermer, Gus Barber, Ben Goldstein on the call over on the WBCB Sports Network on YouTube. That's where some of you are watching us right now. Others on WBCB 1490, 107.3 FM. Do not go anywhere. When we come back, I'm going to be breaking down the game of the week over in Mercer County. Hopewell Valley traveling to Notre Dame, the Bulldogs and the Irish, previewing that matchup on the other side of this break right here on the High School Huddle. Today's show is proudly sponsored by Anthony Petsis and Associates, voted the best financial advisory firm in Bucks County for 13 years by the Bucks County Courier-Times. Anthony Petsis and Associates delivers people-centered advice, empowering you to take control of your financial future with confidence. Their firm is committed to helping your family build and preserve wealth for the next 100 years. If you're interested in becoming a client of the top-rated financial advisory firm in Bucks County, please contact Anthony Petsis and Associates at 215-968-6638. That's 215-968-6638. You can also visit their website at apetsis.com. Anthony Petsis and Associates. If you don't know where you're going, any road will take you there.
Are you a parrot head?
We stayed away again in Margarita.
Not that kind.
Oi Dana, mother to Papuga.
That's more like it. If you're this kind of parrot head, don't forget to check out the Denny-O Polka Show every Saturday from 9 a.m. to noon right here on 1490 WBCB and online at WBCB1490.com.
Energy costs are skyrocketing. Now is the time to upgrade your old heater and air conditioning systems to more efficient units to save on your utility bills. Harris Comfort can also handle all your propane needs, as well as providing sales and service on whole house generators. Harris Comfort is still family owned and has been serving our area for over 60 years, providing sales, service, installation, and peace of mind. Call 215-788-4596 or go to harriscomfort.com. Harris Comfort, still family and still local.
You're listening to the High School Huddle on WBCB 1490 AM and 107.3 FM. The High School Huddle is proudly brought to you by the Capital Health System and Anthony Petsis and Associates. Now back to your host, Jordan Hirsh.
Welcome back to the High School Huddle. I'm your host, Jordan Hirsh, here on WBCB 1490 AM, 107.3 FM. Also, shout out to our viewers on YouTube over at WBCB Sports. Hey, gotta mention WBCB Sports. We've got a brand new Instagram page that you can all go follow as well. WBCB_SN. We're going to be using that page to promote a lot of our high school football games. Once we get into basketball, baseball season, some of those games as well, including the coaches' roundtables. Going to be posting player of the game interviews. Also, do a little bit of advertising for this show, as well as my other show, Friday Night Hype with Rich Fisher, over on that platform as well. So if you're not already following, make sure you head on over to Instagram, type in WBCB_SN in the search bar. Give us a follow for some more great high school sports content. All right, we spent last segment talking about Pennsbury and Neshaminy. We're going across the river like we do every week. And let's talk about the game of the week in Mercer County. That's Hopewell Valley and Notre Dame. The Bulldogs, they come into this one with a 1-1 record. And Hopewell Valley, they had some questions to answer last week following their 35-28 overtime loss against Montgomery in their season opener. One of those questions was, is this going to be potentially a retooling year? Remember, Montgomery last season just 1-9. A lot of people expected Hopewell Valley, even with some of their inexperience, to go out there and win that Week 0 game. They did not. So the question became, could this be a retooling year? Or was it maybe just first game, or really first half jitters, because the offense went out there and put up 28 points in the second half. So could it have just been jitters as well? And guess what? It turns out it was the latter of those two. Hopewell Valley, they hammered up-and-coming Robbinsville 59-21 on the road last week. In what was their largest margin of victory, those 38 points, right? Since a 49-0 win against Trenton back on October 6, 2023. And it's their largest road win since they beat Princeton 50-6 on October 26th, 2019. It had been nearly 6 years since Hopewell Valley had a win like that away from home. They didn't need their quarterback to do a whole lot. Grayson Vlasic just 6 for 10, 92 yards and 2 touchdowns. But the breakout performer of the week, junior running back Ethan Valenza. Where did he come from, right? Nobody was really talking about him going into this Hopewell Valley season. Even in the running game, a lot of the emphasis was on guys like Jude Berman and Lucas Hemmer. But Valenza, 18 carries, 308 yards, 4 touchdowns, 17.1 yards per carry, and those TDs came on rushes of 38 yards, 82 yards, 58 yards, and 57 yards. And oh yeah, it was his varsity debut. Hats off to Ethan Valenza. What a performance for him. Preston Horvath, he got involved in the running game as well with 5 carries for 43 yards and a touchdown. Jude Berman had a catch for 30 yards that went for a TD. Also got involved in the special teams aspect, had a 95-yard kickoff return touchdown. In total, 394 rushing yards for Hopewell Valley in that game, 5 rushing touchdowns. The defense did allow 328 total yards, but they did come up with 5 sacks, an interception by Ryan Lawn, and then a fumble recovery by Ryan Otterbray. So the 2 Ryans on that Hopewell Valley defense getting involved in the turnover department. And the Bulldogs, they look like they may have found their next star running back. Ethan Valenza, those 308 rushing yards in a varsity debut, right? I mean, that's unheard of. That goes without saying. But if he's a guy that can step up and take some pressure off of Grayson Vlasic's shoulders, he could be really the main key to what's could be another successful season at Hopewell Valley. Head coach Dave Caldwell, he also mentioned how impressed he was with the offensive line, which, by the way, features 4 new starters. He thinks that group is going to be getting better every week. And guess what? Because if he's right, look out for this run game. This offense, they've got the ability to be one of the most balanced in Mercer County. The running game proved its worth last week against Robbinsville, but to be balanced, you need both. You need a solid running game and a solid passing attack. We still haven't seen Grayson Vlasic have that breakout game as the quarterback, and if this team is going to be, as you hear every coach talk about balance, but if this coach is, if this team truly is going to be as balanced of an offense as they have the capability to be, Grayson Vlasic, he's going to have to continue to grow along with the rest of his squad. His squad taking on Notre Dame this week, tomorrow, 6 o'clock on the WBCB Sports Network. Mike Warren, he's going to be on the call for that one. And Notre Dame, they went up against a very talented Timber Creek team last week. Hung around in the first half. They trailed just 6-0 at halftime, but then the Chargers put the pedal to the metal and ended up winning 37-6. Chargers in the second half, they had touchdown plays of 25 yards, 40 yards, 63 yards, and 34 yards. That accounted for 4 of their 5 second-half touchdowns. And the biggest question mark for Notre Dame, even with a team that has a new starting quarterback, it was always going to be about how their defense would perform against some elite out-of-conference opponents and in a very high-scoring Capital Division. And so far, not good. 72 points allowed through the first 2 games, and those 2 games had very different personalities as well. Their Week 0 matchup against Bridgewater Raritan, BR was able to just methodically march the ball down the field, and then Timber Creek goes out there last week, unleashes their big play offense, which did really whatever they wanted to the Irish in the second half. And that's quite concerning, especially now that they're going up against a Hopewell Valley team coming off that 59-point performance, the most they've scored in a game in the NJ.com era, which goes back to 2010. Hopewell Valley, in their last 3 halves of football, have put up 87 total points. Some stats from that game last week for Notre Dame. Matt Roush, the quarterback, 17 of 29, 196 yards, 2 touchdowns. It was good to see him not throw the ball away this week. He had 2 interceptions against Bridgewater Raritan the week before, so good to see that he was more careful with some of his decisions. Jaden Davis in the run game, just 8 carries, 28 yards. Anthony Merlino had 8 rushes for 20 yards. Musa Kamara, who's been used exclusively in the passing game this season, 5 catches for 41 yards. Joseph Clock, another one of those wide receivers that's been there for a couple of years, 3 catches for 30 yards. Alex Butanoy, 5 receptions, 39 yards in that one. So far, Notre Dame's defense this season, though, just 3 sacks and 6 tackles for loss in 2 games. I think the biggest key for Notre Dame this week, it's going to be you got to get pressure on Grayson Vlasic tomorrow night. Make the inexperienced quarterback uncomfortable. And in addition, they've got to shore up their rushing defense as well, because it's not going to matter if they allow another 200 to 300 yards on the ground. They've allowed an average of 260.5 rushing yards per game so far, facing that Bulldog team that's coming off of an all-time performance on the ground, 6 yards away from 400 rush yards against Robbinsville last week. So on offense, Notre Dame, they got to try to establish more of a ground game themselves, I think. And while I am impressed with some of the numbers that first-year starter Matt Roush is putting up at quarterback, Sean Clancy, in a conversation before the season, he told me that he was very excited to have a running back core as deep as the Irish have this year, but so far we haven't really seen that full stable unleashed. The running backs, they're averaging just 3.5 yards per carry, and it's only been Jaden Davis and Anthony Merlino. They're the only two guys that have been used. Like I talked about earlier, Musa Kamara, he's been used exclusively as a wide receiver. He's a guy that I think a lot of people expected to have a big year, especially with a new quarterback. And then the two freshmen that we talked about in one of the first shows over on Friday Night Hype, C.J. Woods and Justin Macto. Sean Clancy had some very high praise for those two freshmen during training camp. They haven't even seen the field yet. So I think for Notre Dame, if they're able to establish more of a rushing attack and perhaps use their stable of backs more and just give them a little bit more touches. They only had 16 carries, their two running backs last week. And of course, you're playing from behind a whole lot, which doesn't help. But they were close in that first half and had opportunities to run the ball. And just weren't able to get it done. I'd like to see them commit to that ground game a little bit more and maybe play to their strength, or what could be their strength. We haven't quite seen it become unleashed yet, but if you believe what Sean Clancy said at the beginning of the year, he thinks the ground game he thought the ground game, they had a chance to have a big season this year. So if he truly believes that that is their strength, I think he should go out there and show it tomorrow night against Hopewell Valley. We'll see what happens in this game, but if it's anything like in recent years, it's going to be another good one, because Hopewell Valley and Notre Dame, they've provided some special games here in recent history. Perhaps none were more memorable than their meeting at Notre Dame 2 years ago, back in 2023. It was a 35-34 win for the Irish in the second to last week of the regular season. In that game, Notre Dame, they entered 8-0. Hopewell Valley was 6-1. The Irish, they trailed 34-21 after a touchdown by Hopewell Valley running back Ben DeCour about midway through the third quarter. They would cut the deficit to 6 before the end of the third, and then won it on a 49-yard pass from A.J. Serace to Michael Quinn in the final minutes of that game. Hopewell Valley, they went down to Notre Dame last season and got some revenge. Picked up a 47-21 win on the road in that game. Put up 469 total yards of offense last season. Ben DeCour, Notre Dame, certainly very happy that they don't have to face him ever again. He rushed for 189 yards in their meeting last season. Had a career-high 4 touchdowns in that game. And then how about this stat? In each of the last 8 meetings, at least one team has scored 33 or more points, and the Irish, they've won 6 of those games. This is a game we're going to continue to talk about tomorrow. Myself and Rich Fisher on Friday Night Hype from 4 to 5 p.m. right here, WBCB 1490 AM 107.3 FM. Also available on YouTube at WBCB Sports. Going to be doing a lot of talk about Hopewell Valley and Notre Dame, and some other games going on around New Jersey tomorrow. And on Saturday, West Windsor United against Robbinsville. West Windsor still looking for their first points of the season. Robbinsville looking for a bounce-back effort as they look to go back above 500. Myself and Fish, we're going to be on the call on Saturday at 11 a.m. for Hightstown and Steinert. Going to be talking to head coach Thaddeus Richards coming up here in just a little bit. Going to ask him some questions going into that game against Hightstown, and also talk about his team's first win against Cherry Hill West, 17-13 last week. Allentown, they're taking on Nottingham, a pair of teams looking for their first wins. Ewing against Princeton. Princeton, I talked about it in one of the earlier shows. I thought they could be one of the more surprising teams over in Mercer County. They're off to a 2-0 start, taking on a Ewing team, still looking for their first win under their new head coach. Trenton, they go up against Hamilton West. The Tornadoes looking to get off to a 3-0 start. Hamilton West looking to go above 500 after they snuck past East Brunswick last week. And then we got to talk a little bit about Florence and Lawrence in the rhyming game of the week. Florence, now part of the National Division in the WJFL, moved over there last season, taking on the Florence Flashes. And the Cardinals, they're looking to go above 500. They got a big win against Mapleshade, so they're looking to go to 2-1 on the young season. Coach Rob Radis has a much improved squad led by their talented running back, James Lyons. So we're going to be talking about all those games next week on Friday Night Hype. But when we come back here on the High School Huddle, I'm going to have the voice of Notre Dame Athletics on the phone. Going to talk to Mike Warren to preview this Notre Dame Hopewell Valley game that's going to get underway tomorrow. So make sure you stay tuned right here, WBCB 1490, 107.3 FM, or on YouTube, WBCB Sports High School Huddle. Back after this.
Capital Health's primary care network continues to grow, bringing its extensive option of locations to your neighborhood. Whether you're scheduling a wellness checkup or not feeling well, advanced medicine starts with a Capital Health primary care doctor at locations near you in Mercer, Bucks, and Burlington counties. To find a Capital Health primary care location that's convenient for you, visit capitalmedicalgroup.org. That's capitalmedicalgroup.org.
You won't see termites crawling across your floor, but thousands might be devouring the wood in your walls, weakening the structure of your home. For over 50 years, termite proofing and pest control of the Delaware Valley has been in the exterminating business. If you think you have a pest problem, they're the experts. Call them today at 215-639-5455. That's 215-639-5455 for TPPC. Termite proofing and pest control of the Delaware Valley gives your home or business peace of mind, knowing your pest problem is in their hands. Located at 1560 Bristol Pike in Bensalem, they use only EPA-approved material applied by licensed technicians. Call Termite Proofing and Pest Control of the Delaware Valley at 215-639-5455.
I'm Henry Carpenter, certified elder law attorney and host of Senior Legal Strategies right here on WBCB. On a recent Senior Legal Strategies, we discussed the importance of the 4 basic estate planning documents. A general durable power of attorney names someone to take care of your finances, properties, and legal affairs if you can't. A medical power of attorney names someone to make lifetime medical care decisions if you can't. A living will or healthcare directive sets forth your directions for end-of-life care. A last will and testament directs where your assets go and don't go after your death and selects someone to finalize your affairs. I invite you to call us today at 215-493-0727 to schedule a no-cost consultation to discuss these documents and any other concerns you may have.
You're listening to the High School Huddle on WBCB 1490 AM and 107.3 FM. The High School Huddle is proudly brought to you by the Capital Health System and Anthony Petsis and Associates. Now back to your host, Jordan Hirsch.
Welcome back to the High School Huddle. I'm your host, Jordan Hirsch, here on WBCB 1490, 107.3 FM, also on YouTube, WBCB Sports. Last segment, we talked about the game of the week in Mercer County, Hopewell Valley taking on Notre Dame. And now, for the second time in High School Huddle history, we've got on the line the voice of Notre Dame High School Athletics on WBCB Sports, proud Notre Dame Irish alum, Mike Warren. Mike, how you doing today?
Hey, Jordan, doing well, man. Thanks so much for having me back on.
Oh, thanks so much for coming back on. You're going to be on the call tomorrow, Notre Dame and Hopewell Valley. Notre Dame still in search of their first win, Mike, and the Irish, they hung around in the first half last week. Unfortunately for them, though, Timber Creek really pulled away after the break. I did a lot of talking about the Notre Dame defense a little earlier on. What was the biggest difference for the defense last week between the first half and the second half?
Yeah, I think it was just tired legs, honestly. I think, really when you look at what Timber Creek did well last week, specifically in the second half, it was running the football. They weren't doing anything too explosive with the ball on the ground. It was simple stuff, keeping it between the tackles. Every once in a while they would sweep it wide, but they had a really big front five up front on their offensive line, and I think it just, the physicality just wore down the Notre Dame defense in the second half. Give credit to Tim Jones and the defensive coordinator and the rest of the staff for Notre Dame in the first half, because they truly did. I mean, if the offense was able to get things going, the first half game plan was good enough for Notre Dame to build a lead and to get in front first. But unfortunately on the offensive side, just way too many, self-inflicted wounds and penalties for them there. But yeah, one half to the next defensively, it really was just Timber Creek not shying away from the game plan. The run game, there really wasn't much of it in the first half. You give credit to Notre Dame's defense. Dylan Bundick was in the backfield just about all game. But in the first half, I think he had about 3 tackles for a loss that really set the tone from a run defensive perspective. So they're going to have to try to build off of that first half in Timber Creek and play a full 4 quarters against, Hopewell Valley. A lot of emotions on the line in this one.
Yeah, and now offensively, we know Notre Dame has the talent at the running back position, but we haven't really seen Sean Clancy use that aspect of his offense as much as we thought he would so far. Of course, part of that could be because the Irish have been playing from behind more often than not through the early part of the season. But would you like to see Notre Dame try to commit to the run game a little bit more tomorrow?
Yes, I do, and I think you need to commit to one running back. And I know that sounds weird because, in the NFL today and in college, you have multi-running back facets. But with Notre Dame specifically, you've got one running back in your backfield that is far superior to the others on the depth chart, and that's Jaden Davis. You have to find ways to get him in space. I mentioned it the first time I was on the show. He reminds me of Darren Sproles, his ability to get lost behind blockers and to take advantage of that. But they need to be a little bit more persistent with him running the football. And maybe it's not just running the football with Jaden Davis, but it's also getting him loose in the passing game as well. Matt Roush, again, last week, over 30 pass attempts. The throwing attack has been still there for Notre Dame. It's very much still a spread offense, typical to what we've seen in the past. But Jaden Davis is definitely the best and the most versatile offensive piece on this roster. So if you're going to run the ball, hammer it home with him. If you're going to be a passing team, make him your focal point passing the ball wise, because there's not really many that can match up with him one-on-one unless you're going to jam him on the line of scrimmage. And even then, his quickness is sometimes enough to get around you and his speed. But unless you're going to jam him and get physical with him when he lines out wide as a wide receiver, you're going to have a tough time stopping Jaden Davis in the passing game and in the running game as well. So I think, for Coach Clancy, for Notre Dame this week, I know it's always a focal point, but even more so against Hopewell Valley, you should be moving Jaden Davis all over the field so that you can see what Hopewell Valley is lined up in, whether they're going zone, whether they're spying him the whole game. Make Jaden the focal point. And another guy that really needs to get involved in the passing game, and not to jump ahead here, Jordan, but, Max Pelzer has been in this offense for 3 years now, and he's, had some instances in his career where he's had to be the number one wideout when Wyatt Moore in years past has gone down with injury. They need to get Max Pelzer the ball a little bit more. This is a 6'3" wideout that you don't see a lot of size at the wide receiver position in our area, at least at the high school level. This guy can go up and get it. He's got great speed, great hands, and I think they really need to start utilizing him more in the offensive game as well.
And so taking on that Hopewell Valley team this week, they put up nearly 60 last week against Robbinsville and really showed no mercy in their rushing attack. 394 total rushing yards, 308 of which were by a first-year guy in his first game, Ethan Valenza. It was his varsity debut, so a guy that really has maybe little to no tape on him, could be tough to scout. Notre Dame, they've struggled to stop the run so far. So what do they have to do to have a better performance this week and slow down this Hopewell Valley rushing attack?
It comes down to the trenches, Jordan. I know it's kind of cliche, but the game is won and lost at the line of scrimmage. And when Notre Dame, when they've been 0-2 this season, as we've talked about, their 2 losses, they have not won the line of scrimmage on either side of the football. So that's going to be the big thing. And if there's one thing that we know, it's that Dave Caldwell knows Notre Dame pretty well. He has a pretty good idea of what Notre Dame is going to want to do both defensively and offensively against him in this matchup. But yeah, for Notre Dame, in terms of for them to turn things around here, the defensive line has to play leaps and bounds better than it did last week against Timber Creek. A lot of losing gap discipline, a lot of one-on-one matchups that were not won in the trenches. And again, give credit where it's due. Timber Creek's offensive line is massive. They've got a lot of big pieces. They've got a star on that offensive line who's committed to Syracuse. So the challenges were there last week for Notre Dame. This week, you're facing a Hopewell Valley team that's in a very similar boat as you in terms of the Irish, where, you lost a lot of pieces. You lost a lot of your offense and a lot of your main sack getters in your defense from a season ago. You think about the Bulldogs and what they were able to do last season, far and away the best team in Mercer County. And, in their section, they gave a great run as well. So you lose all that talent. How do you respond? Well, Dave Caldwell's had no problem responding with a first-year quarterback and with, a first-year running back. They're going to run the football. We know it's coming. Notre Dame knows it's coming. It's just a matter of if they can stop it. And my fear is that with Dave Caldwell and the discipline that he's been able to establish with his offensive line, a young offensive line, they call it a unit for a reason. It's because they move as one. I don't know if Notre Dame's defensive line is going to be able to stop this rushing attack for Hopewell Valley this weekend.
And then I know that Notre Dame, they've had a very tough schedule to open the year, opening against Bridgewater, Raritan, Timber Creek, and now Hopewell Valley. That's asking a lot out of any team, much less one with now a new defensive coordinator and a new quarterback. But it's not like the schedule gets much easier from here on out. These are going to be the teams that you have to beat if you want to have postseason success. So just how important is it for Notre Dame to get this win tomorrow, to show the rest of Mercer County that they are still for real?
I think this is the game of the year for Notre Dame. I think this has been the game of the year for them for the last however many years now. We've had it on WBCB. You think back to 2 years ago when A.J. Serace marches them 98 yards down the field for a win. You think back to last year, Hopewell Valley putting a statement victory against Notre Dame on Notre Dame's field, the same field that they lost in very dramatic fashion. And you know what? This game, I mean, let's just lay it out plain point period here, Jordan. These two schools, for some reason, they just do not get along. The student sections, they get up for this game. The fan bases get up for this game. The players don't like each other. It's turned into a very quick and a very bitter rivalry here in Mercer County, and we love that on WBCB. We love having that type of content and those type of games. But for this game specifically, I mean, this is Notre Dame's Super Bowl. You have to come out and you have to show that you can be the defense that won you games down the stretch last season. You can be the offense that got Jaden Davis 11, 12, 13 looks in the air a game last season at times. So these are the things that they got to do well, that Notre Dame has to do well to win. For Hopewell Valley, I think if they stay true to the run game and they do what they do well offensively, which is run the football, and if they realize that they're getting 4 and 5 and 6 yards a carry, they're not going to shy away from that. Dave Caldwell is not a coach that tries to fix things, to look flashy. He'll beat you in the way that he knows he can beat you, and if it's taking 4 and 5 downs of play, he's going to do that. So this could be a very, grounded pound kind of clock. Doesn't seem like it's ever stopping kind of a game if Hopewell Valley is able to establish the run that they're able to. But, yeah, this is an exciting one, Jordan. I'm fired up for it. I'm sure the people can tell listening. Just over the last couple of years, I've been really had the joy and the pleasure of describing this game and calling the action of this game. It's one of the biggest ones each year, and it's because, these two coaches are some of the best in the area, and they do a great job, making sure that their teams are ready for this game. And I fully expect both teams to be ready for this. I think the energy matches it. I think the effort level is going to match it, and I think there will be a great game Friday night on WBCB. Hopefully everybody will be able to tune in and we'll enjoy it.
Well, see, then that's a PSA to everybody listening. If Mike Warren is this excited, calling it the game of the year. See, I don't just make this stuff up. This is the game of the year, definitely the game of the week in Mercer County, and we've got it for you on the air, WBCB Sports. Mike Warren, he's going to be with Joe O'Gorman tomorrow, kickoff 6 o'clock from Notre Dame. Make sure you all tune into that. And, Mike, thank you so much for hopping on today. I really appreciate it.
Anytime, Jordan. Thanks again.
Well, there you have it. That was Mike Warren, the voice of Notre Dame athletics. Like I said, him, Joe O'Gorman there on the call tomorrow, 6 o'clock from Notre Dame. Irish looking for their first win. Hopewell Valley looking to build off of an impressive victory last week against Robbinsville. But do not go anywhere, because that was our first of 2 interviews that we've got for you here on the High School Huddle this week. When we come back, going to be talking to head coach Thaddeus Richards of Steinert High School. They've got a big game against Hightstown. It's their first divisional game of the season. Make sure you stay tuned. Thaddeus Richards joins me next here on the High School Huddle.
Capital Health's primary care network continues to grow, bringing its extensive option of locations to your neighborhood. Whether you're scheduling a wellness checkup or not feeling well, advanced medicine starts with a Capital Health primary care doctor at locations near you in Mercer, Bucks, and Burlington counties. To find a Capital Health primary care location that's convenient for you, visit capitalmedicalgroup.org. That's capitalmedicalgroup.org.
Today's show is proudly sponsored by Anthony Petsis and Associates, voted the best financial advisory firm in Bucks County for 13 years by the Bucks County Courier-Times. Anthony Petsis and Associates delivers people-centered advice, empowering you to take control of your financial future with confidence. Their firm is committed to helping your family build and preserve wealth for the next 100 years. If you're interested in becoming a client of the top-rated financial advisory firm in Bucks County, please contact Anthony Petsis and Associates at 215-968-6638. That's 215-968-6638. You can also visit their website at apetsis.com. Anthony Petsis and Associates. If you don't know where you're going, any road will take you there.
Sandy's Beef and Ale has been serving famous hand-carved roast beef sandwiches since 1967. Sandy's Beef and Ale is located in the Woodburn Square Shopping Center right off Lincoln Highway at Woodburn Road. Drop in anytime, not only for the roast beef sandwiches, but also for the tailgater and the Cuban. Family and friends have been coming to Sandy's Beef and Ale since 1967. Stop in for the original hand-carved sandwich, live music, and watch your Philadelphia sports teams all season long. Sandy's Beef and Ale in the Woodburn Square Shopping Center off Lincoln Highway at Woodburn Road.
You're listening to the High School Huddle on WBCB 1490 AM and 107.3 FM. The High School Huddle is proudly brought to you by the Capital Health System and Anthony Petsis and Associates. Now back to your host, Jordan Hirsh.
Welcome back to the High School Huddle. I am your host, Jordan Hirsh, and now I am joined by a very special guest. On the phone with me is Steinert football head coach Thaddeus Richards. Coach, how you doing today?
I'm doing great, man. Pleasure to be on with you.
Well, thank you so much for coming on. You guys have a big game this week against Hightstown we're going to be covering on Saturday. But you guys coming off your first win of the season. It came down to the final minutes against Cherry Hill West last week. What does that tell you about this team that they were able to win a game like that, especially having not played a single one-score game last year?
Yeah, I mean, we talked about it, me and you, going into the year, just about how the program over the past couple of years has been kind of boom or bust, in the sense where we're beating teams pretty handily, or teams are beating us pretty handily. So getting a little bit of taste of adversity. Obviously, last week at Central didn't go our way, and then this week bouncing back in the second half, showing a lot of resilience, which we know our kids pride themselves on. So we found out exactly who they were, and the beautiful thing is they are who we thought they were. So it's a great thing to find out about your program as far as resilience and how they battle through adversity.
And, of course, some of that adversity was you guys were down your top receiver and cornerback threat, Mekhi Blackstone. It was announced before the game he'd be out till about mid-October with a knee injury. How do you foresee that injury affecting things for your team the rest of the way? And then who are some players that are going to have to step up in his absence?
Yeah, so first things first, I do want to kind of dispel some narratives that have been out there. That timetable is very, very arbitrary right now. He's still meeting with doctors and physicians, so we're not sure his status for even next week at this point. I know he's optimistic about getting that pushed up very, very soon. So we're not sure the timeline as far as when he's going to be back or when we're going to have him back. But what I'll say is we do have a strong contingency of leaders within our program. Obviously, he's been a huge voice in that and a huge part of that, but we're confident that the rest of our leadership committee can kind of fill that void. And he's still there. Every day at practice, he's doing exactly what he's supposed to do. He's a key component of what we do offensively and defensively, structurally at practice. So he's very much involved. So the minute he does get clear, he's able to start to get himself right back into the fold. So he's with us, even though he's not physically on the field with us.
Well, that's certainly great news there, that he could be back a little earlier than maybe some people had thought. But one of the guys that you've got on your team, another one of your standouts, Isaac Pate. We all knew he was probably going to be one of the top running backs in Mercer County again this season, but back-to-back games of 100-plus yards on the ground to get the season going. What makes Isaac Pate such an elite back in your eyes?
I mean, he's box office, as they say. He's the kind of kid that you get him the ball and there's nothing there, and he makes something out of nothing. He's a truly, truly special back. His vision, his quick twitch. I mean, you watch him play, the quick twitch stands out to you, but his ability to navigate. It's not that he's busting runs on any just outside hitting plays, toss sets. It's inside the A and B gaps that he makes his money. Being able to navigate in the trenches, and then he just kind of pops out the other side. I don't know how else to say it. So I haven't seen a back in my time coaching or even playing back in the day that has that rare ability to do that. And then he's tough as nails. He's really, really deceptively hard to bring down. So you don't see him get brought down in one-on-one scenarios very often. So he's about 150 pounds, but he plays like he's 200. So he's a special combination of a back.
And then your new quarterback this season, John LaGuardia. He had a solid game last week, perhaps a little better gauge on him since, making your first start as a sophomore against a Shore Conference team in week 0. Probably something that would be tough on anybody. But what have you seen out of him so far?
Yeah, I mean, his poise, and he's a gamer, He's the type of kid that obviously that first game, if you look just at the box score, it doesn't tell the complete story of who he was in that game and the poise and his competitive nature, and that's kind of who he is. He's going to find ways to make plays within a game, and that's kind of his strongest attribute right now, especially as he learns the pace and speed of the high school varsity game, I should say. The competitive fire, you saw it throughout the second half of that Cherry Hill West game. Now he's getting more settled, he's getting more comfortable, so I expect the growth to only continue.
And then you're facing Hightstown on Saturday. You had a big 32-6 win against them last season. What are some things that you learned about your team in that game that you feel could benefit you guys this week?
I wish I could say there was a ton of carryover from last year to this year, but this is a whole different Hightstown team, in my opinion. They possess so much talent at all three levels, defensively and offensively. They got game breakers all over the place and a good unit in the trenches. So I think last year's unit, it did provide them a sense of confidence in the first division game as to the steps that they had taken in the off season. But this year, it's such a different test. They are they seem like they're ready to go. They got so much talent that we're very, very vigilant about how we have to approach this game to have any sort of success, and we're gonna have to play a very good game to go beat them here.
And then a lot of that Hightstown talent is on their defensive side. Outside of the fourth quarter last week, the Rams' defense has really stifled teams so far. So as you prepare for this game, what have you seen on tape from that unit that your offense is going to have to contend with on Saturday?
Yeah, I mean they pursue the ball with a vengeance. They're relentless in their pursuit. They do a really, really nice job playing assignment-based football. And then they have athletes at that second level they got is it's an impressive second level, inside backers and overhangs over there. So they fly around. So we're going to have to play a clean game of football to make sure that we are moving the ball on them.
And then on the other side of things, their quarterback, Ryan Walsh, gives the Hightstown offense a little more of a vertical threat than they've had in years past. What will be the keys to keeping him contained on Saturday?
Yeah, I mean, I know last year he suffered the injury. He was in line to compete for that job for them, and I thought going into it, I thought he would win that job. So he's a kid that we're very, very familiar with based on the tape, early scrimmage tape last year for them. And he understands his progressions. He tries to get through them, and he's got a live arm. He does a real nice job spinning the thing. So his numbers don't tell the true story of who he is as a quarterback. We think he's very, very talented. So he's obviously able to stretch things vertically and command an offense as a senior here. So he presents a much different challenge than we've seen from Hightstown in years past.
And then one of the guys that's going to be going after Ryan Walsh this week is going to be Jamel Kaparwe. You mentioned to me before the season that he's receiving some Power 5 interest. If you're able to, can you share some of the teams that have been keeping an eye on him, and then also just what makes him so good on the defensive line?
Yeah, so teams that have touched base with him and have kept an eye on him considerably, most notably Rutgers and Michigan State, the Big Ten schools there. They've Michigan State possessing the most interest right now, but for him, it's been a great start to the year. I know that numbers-wise, he doesn't have the sacks, but we put him in a position where he's really occupying blocks and then rushing the passer as well. So he's I mean, you put on our tape, and him and Gabe Pennybach up front stick out. It's special what they've been able to put together over the past couple games here. And I know that numbers might not tell the whole story, but you see them. They're special football players. We're very, very optimistic about how they'll continue and finish out this year as we kind of hit the home stretch of divisional play.
All right, and then just plain and simple, pair of 1-1 teams going at it this week. What kind of game do you expect?
Yeah, I expect a dogfight. I mean, obviously, it's a divisional game. We're excited for it. The kids are fired up for this. We haven't played anybody within a 20-mile radius of us, so it'll be good to play a familiar face here. But it's going to be a 4-quarter game, just like the Cherry Hill West game, I imagine. We're going to have to play a really, really clean and good game of football on both sides of the ball and specials to really, really take advantage of any kind of opportunities they give us. So we got a lot of respect for what they're doing over there right now, and that's evident. They go out and beat a short conference team week 0, so they're doing things the right way. So we just have to make sure that we're playing a pretty clean and good game of football to come out with the victory here.
Well, Coach, I appreciate all the insight and information. Thank you so much for your time. Thanks for hopping on today, and good luck on Saturday against Hightstown.
Hey, I really appreciate it. I appreciate your coverage of our county here, and I can't echo it enough how much the kids appreciate your support. So thank you, and we will see you Saturday.
Well, there you have it. That was Steinert head coach Thaddeus Richards. Steinert Spartans taking on the Hightstown Rams in their division opener on Saturday at 11 a.m. Pre-game gets you started at 10:45. Myself, along with the Mercer County Hall of Famer Rich Fisher, we're going to be on the call from Steinert High School. Make sure you tune into that on our YouTube page, WBCB Sports. And I'd like to thank everybody who tuned in on the air, WBCB 1490 AM 107.3 FM, as well as on our YouTube stream, WBCB Sports. Thank you so much to everybody who listened and watched this episode of the High School Huddle. Glenn Jones is up next over on the radio side. Thank you to everybody who tuned in, and have a great weekend, everybody. Talk to you next week.